the Around the NFL podcast. Loves a good defensive struggle.
From the Chris Wesseling podcast studio, it's Around the NFL. I'm Dan Hanzus. Heroes here, Gregg, Rosenthal, Marc, Sessler. I like a defensive struggle when it works out for your team. It's great. It's awesome. Nasty little Thang this Sunday, football Sunday, right?
Yeah, a bit of a come down from last week.
And I don't even mean that, obviously, with what happened with the Jets today, and we're going to get to that later. But just like, it's almost like football Sunday woke up on the wrong side of the bed and was just like, I'm going to go about my business, but I'm just going to stick it to some people today. Like, just a little bit of a weird vibe to some of these games.
Outside of the Jets, what do you mean? The Cowboys-Vikings being the premier game of the week, and I know we're going to get to it, and being a total no-show, that was a big problem.
And then I look, and this is universal, even though I'm referring to the league of record and fantasy that no one cares about, but like sub 100-point scores all over the place. Yeah. I feel like there are a lot of strange happenings in our league in this Sunday. Did we get some clarity in the league? I don't know.
I think, you know what I think it did a little bit? With a couple teams, and Gregg and I were talking about this, teams like the Vikings, teams like the Giants, where there's been all this like national complaint about their records being inflated. Well, maybe we're getting a little bit closer to what the records are. I don't really feel that way about them necessarily because this is such a weird year. I don't even know who's that good at this point. But maybe these teams deserved a little bit of an L to bring them back to reality.
A little bit of a regression week. I like that as a theme.
Some of these teams,
Ravens took the week off on offense. What are
that
they
was a little bit of a
doing?
weird
just
game,
strange. You know, no one's calling for that 4 days ago.
Texans are still playing this season,
right? Fielding the team.
Continue to.
For some fan bases, it was kind of like a swallow the sadness Sunday.
Yeah.
You know, and we're going to get to all that.
Got to go through that.
But one of those fan bases, surprisingly, turned out to be the Minnesota Vikings, who entered Week 11 with just one loss, riding high, welcoming a Cowboys team, licking its wounds after a tough loss against Green Bay. And then this happened.
Snap back to Prescott. He's got a lot of time. Deep down the right side. Oh, it's caught at the 45, 40, Pollard, 20, 10, Pollard, Uncle. 68 to Tony Pollard on 3rd and 15. Good night, nurse.
Yes. Nice call by Brad Sham, the Sham God, KRLD. Uncle is right. Because just when you could start to talk yourselves into the Vikings getting a stop and maybe getting on a second half bender there to make that game interesting, Tony Pollard goes off for his second touchdown catch of the game. He finished with a career-high 189 yards from scrimmage. The Cowboys sacked Kirk Cousins 7 times. That's the most he's ever been sacked in a game. And when it was all over, when the carnage had completed, when the dust cleared, the Vikings' 7-game win streak over because the Cowboys won 40-3. Gregg, what did you see in this game? Because this was a first overall draft pick in our draft on Thursday for you. We were expecting this to be a great back and forth close game, and instead it turned out to the biggest blowout of the year.
Don't try to stick it to me that once again my first overall draft pick went bust.
I think it's a fair comment.
You guys are
Dan.
calling this like the Jamarcus Russell of number 1 overall draft pick.
Listen, maybe
games?
It's swallow the sadness Sunday for you too. I don't know.
It didn't go the way you thought.
I was disappointed.
Poor Tony Romo. He was trying to leave the booth by the third quarter.
Right, Tony Romo in a big spot in an NFC game. I was interested in it, but I like good football. And so I wasn't as disappointed.
Your loyalty, yes.
Some blowouts can be entertaining, and watching the Cowboys play this well was entertaining. Let's just start with the offense, because when Dak Prescott is playing this clean and you have Tony Pollard as the lead back, you can give Zeke some touchdowns at the goal line to make him feel good. You can start him in the game, which they did.
But to make Jerry Jones happy, I think.
Right, let's be real. Tony Pollard is the lead back here. You mentioned his total yardage. Over 100 yards of that was over expectation, according to Next Gen Stats.
Good stat.
He's so good in terms of breaking tackles and making people miss and getting yards after contact. Leads the league in that. But Dak, to me, was the key. The Vikings had 1 quarterback hit in this game. No sacks. Almost a Golston. We're going to make this thing happen, Dan.
Who's we?
Me. Dak.
Someone pointed out it was also a dirty Peter at one point, and you just steamrolled it But let's keep
It
going.
was Dirty Peter years ago.
Yeah. But go ahead.
Dak has been up and down, I think, since he's come back. But his throws in this game were so accurate, and I think what really stuck with me is the drive before halftime. They get the ball back with 35 seconds to go inside their own 20, and instead, with a 20-3 lead, the game's over at that point, it almost feels like. And Mike McCarthy stays aggressive. They keep
he does,
advancing the ball 7 yards at a time, and still there's no time left. It doesn't feel like there's going to be time. Great pass up the middle from Dak to get them somewhat in shouting distance, and then one of the best throws of his life and one of the best catches of the year by CeeDee Lamb on the sideline to set up that 60-yard bomb by Mayer. And it just got me thinking, like, this offense, when it's that aggressive, is right there with the best offenses in the league, even without a wide receiver next to CeeDee Lamb.
I mean, I think it's as much about the Cowboys defense. And we've talked about the Vikings, and the Vikings fans don't like to hear this about how they'll take naps.
Who's your buddy again?
Well, he texted me and said, no, this is a disaster. So I think, you're.
No, I'm not looking to pile on. I'm just
right. No, level-headed Vikings.
I mean, what
fans.
else is he going to say at this
point?
point?
No, of course. I mean, I think Vikings fans probably
He's swallowing the sadness.
They were probably like waiting for a game like this to emerge at some point. I mean, I don't know if this is a hangover from the Bills game. I don't. It's hard to describe a result like this. It does. Again, it's so weird because last week it changed what I thought about the Vikings, like from a psychological angle. I'm willing to take this game and say the Vikings are one of these teams in the NFC that they're there. Are they a dominant team? No. I mean, there was a PFT put them at number 1 in their power rankings. I don't know what they were doing with that.
Who's PFT again?
That's Mike Florio and PFT.
Who's his favorite team?
Well, it's the Vikings. So I don't know if that was cooked into it. But this was a game where they punted. They punted 7 straight times.
Power rankings on power rankings crime here. Wow.
You don't just wander into the power rankings game. I don't care who you are.
Well, it's not rankings on rankings crime if I bring it up. You did not jump into that in a negative way.
Everything was
I don't know.
Everything was bad for them, and I don't think it erases what happened. I do think there could have been a hangover from the Bills game. That was an emotional game, in the cold and all that.
Yeah, but this is a huge game too.
Right.
America's team coming in your building in the game of the week on Fox.
And you got another one on Thursday. It's the fact that it was both sides that were absolutely steamrolled. The offensive line was terrible in this game. Kirk Cousins had no chance. He was just pressured. Although the first sack of the game, the first play of the game, or the first drive of the game, Micah Parsons gets him for a sack fumble. And that was more on Kirk. So it's like everyone had problems. And the Vikings defense, who to me isn't that special, gave up 7 straight scores to start the game.
Yeah.
7 straight.
And
it reminds me of like when we were all in the end zone at the Super Bowl. Peyton Manning versus the Seahawks. Right out of the gate.
Right.
The snap goes over his head, and you just knew it was over. It just felt like this is not going to work. And this game, when it reached ultra disaster, right out of it, with Micah Parsons destroying Kirk Cousins, it was like they never appeared again.
That was it. That was the play that kind of set the tone for everything. And yeah, I think it's fair to say, without being too much of a downer, that the Vikings are due for some regression here. That they are a team that was 8-1 with a minus point differential. These are facts around the team. They
now
won.
they are. Yeah, now they have minus.
All right, so now they're 8-2 with a minus point differential. That doesn't mean they're bad. That just means that there have been multiple coin flip games for them that went their way, and I think it is not out of the realm of possibility that this team does come down to earth because they were never as good as their record was indicating. So I'm not putting too much into this loss. I think it's very good, even though their bodies might not feel this way. Although you did get a lot of players got the fourth quarter off. You get to play on Thursday on Thanksgiving. And if you beat the Patriots, it's kind of all washed away and you move forward and you're still in great shape. But it's humbling, I'm sure, at the very least, to get beat like this in your building.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if they beat the Patriots. I just look at this season and I can't get too rattled by any one result.
Yeah, they'll be back in the mix. We'll be talking about that game, but they won't have Christian Darrisaw for that game. So their left tackle, who's been a great story for them, probably headed to a Pro Bowl, suffered a concussion or was tested for a concussion for the second straight week, which is, we keep having these occurrences where guys are in the concussion protocol, return, and then have a concussion the next week. Now, Kevin O'Connell said they're going to be really safe with him. He's definitely out Thursday, and it could be a multi-week injury. And you mentioned there's been other injuries. They had to play Andrew Booth, who was a really high pick for them. Was he their first-round pick or their second-round pick? Either way, I think he was their first-round pick. he has been benched all year. He's been their like 5th cornerback, and they haven't played him. And then today, when he played, they picked on him, and that's why he ended up leading their team in tackles. So they have some leaks springing up.
When I see this game from Dak Prescott, 22 for 25. I mean, you were right. He's a little
Second rounder.
Little bit hot and cold. Dak Prescott. That throw to CeeDee Lamb, which by the way, he was like his arms were like 1.1 yards out of bounds, which is the most a player's arms have been out of bounds on a catch in 3 years, according to Next Gen Stats.
Let's go play.
It's a weird stat, but it's like that. It was an incredible throw and an incredible catch, and like him and Lamb together. I mean, and you suddenly get Pollard. You know, a month and a half ago, it's like, oh, just give Pollard a little bit of the workload. It's like Pollard is an emerging star who fits perfectly into this
Pollard's
offense.
one of the best running backs in the league. He literally led the league in yards per touch a year ago, Danny. And he leads the league in yards per touch this year. You would think that would be like a superstar. That he would get, credit for being a superstar.
What's Jerry Jones going to say? He's still my running back. Zeke is still my guy with all the money.
It's working. This is working fine.
The big person.
Hey, did anybody see Zeke scored 2 touchdowns today? At one point, Zeke goes into the end zone untouched from 1 yard out, and your boy, Tony Romo, was like, and that's why you got to play Zeke Elliott. It's like, I could have scored that touchdown.
You could have.
Whatever. Hey, the Cowboys, they're going to the playoffs, but they want to win the NFC East. To do that, they need the Eagles to lose a couple times. And it was looking like a 2-game losing streak for the Eagles until Jalen Hurts stepped up.
3rd down. Game on the line. Hurts takes the snap. He's back. He's going to run. He's in! Touchdown!
Nice D.
Jalen Hurts!
Way to seal it there.
Jalen Hurts on a quarterback draw scores, and the Eagles can take the lead with the extra point.
Something tells me the Red Sea's parting, Moses style, doesn't happen if Shaq Leonard's on the field there. That's one of the easiest touchdowns in a huge spot you'll ever see.
Or if Moses were on the field, that would be notable, newsworthy.
God, are you here? Jalen Hurts scores that go-ahead touchdown, or the game-tying touchdown, I should say, from 8 yards out with a $1:20 to play, and the Eagles got the extra point, rally for a 17-16 win over the Colts. A game, Mark, that for a long stretch here, the Colts, the team of Sessler,
They are.
it looked like they were going to stack wins here and become a big story, but their offense stalled again, and the Eagles found a way.
Well, if you're the Colts, this is a crushing loss because your expectations were to come in here and do exactly what they almost did. Jalen Hurts, couched inside a problematic offensive showing overall compared to what we've seen from Philadelphia, because this is a good Colts defense. I thought he was so resilient. He runs with such confidence. He threw the ball with precision early on. They really had issues on 3rd down. Hurts was strip sacked by Grover Stewart, who's having a Pro Bowl season. There was an A.J. Brown fumble. There was a play where Jason Kelce, who's essentially a perfect center, snapped the ball over Hurts' head. He had to run around, grab it, get knocked down. All this stuff kept happening on 3rd downs. They had, you don't have Dallas Goedert. The 2 backup tight ends early in the game had critical penalties. They just were out of joint. And it wasn't a game where, outside of, Devontae Smith looking great, they just did not have that deep element to their passing game. And I give the Colts a lot of credit for how they fought in this. On the flip side, I think one of the stories of the game was that right out of the gate, the Colts ripped down the field. And I was wondering, if this is the environment that this Colts offense is going to operate today, they're going to be unstoppable. Jonathan Taylor had 49 yards on the ground. Michael Pittman, a big pass. Matt Ryan's well protected. A couple big plays in the passing game. Bang, 7-0. Jonathan Taylor was essentially, they put the clamps on him for the next 2.5 quarters. I think it was one of the best performances by Philly's run defense. They started Linval Joseph and Ndamukong Suh days, especially just like 48 hours after
Suh, he was just on the car assembly line.
Exactly. And they
chopping it up,
there was a
smoking cigars.
There was a great play where they combined on a sack, the two of them together. It kind of just shows you this Eagles team, like they're going to find the guys they need. This was not a stellar performance. I thought, if anything, though, they're a good enough team to escape that 2-game slump, and they showed it today. Flip side, though, the Colts are well coached. I don't like this Jeff Saturday thing is not not a fluke. They just look better than they have.
Well, their defense has been fantastic the last month. They've been getting better and better on defense throughout the course of the season. I think that started when Frank Reich was there. It was a joy in the early slate of games. I felt the joy coming off of Marc's body watching this team. And it does pain me that they didn't win this game, but you didn't seem that disappointed. You were really just loving football and loving being a part of the Saturday gang.
I was. And I also enjoy watching the Eagles because I feel like every game for them is so – some of these teams is like the Chiefs, you do the same thing week after week. That's nice. But, like, the Eagles, to me, are a little bit different, and they had to work their way out of a funk. And to me, it added on what I thought about them. It elevates what I think about them.
Made a stop there at the end, their defense, too. I mean,
yeah, but I kind of felt like the Colts. The Colts at that point, I was just like – nope, it ain't happening for on that final drive, you mean?
Right. People kind of have asked, like, well, what about when the Eagles, when they get punched in the mouth a little bit? Last week was the first time that they trailed at all, and they tried to make that comeback, and they couldn't pull it off. This week, in a similar spot, they put up 14 in the fourth quarter. So that's just like a good experience, I think, to have for a team going to the playoffs.
And Matt Ryan, I saw some critical tweets about his arm strength in this game. What did you see from him in his second start back?
I mean, I can see what they're saying. I think he made a couple big throws early.
That's not new. Yeah.
He made a couple big throws early. I mean, again, I think the last two games have been a different experience for Matt Ryan. He was sacked 3 times today. He like Jalen Hurts, or 5 times I believe. Jalen Hurts was battered as well. I mean, it was really a game where both defensive fronts had their way, and so Matt Ryan's not going to thrive in that setting. But it's better than a lot of other Matt Ryan performances we saw earlier in the season when the team was an ultra disaster.
Tough for the Colts because if they found a way in this game,
they'd be the story of the league right now.
You know, they'd be 5-5-1, and then they host Pittsburgh on Monday night, and at that point the whole city's back behind the team. Doesn't work out that way. The Eagles 9-1. Every win gets them closer now to just both the division and with the Vikings loss, really in the driver's seat right now for the number 1 seed in the NFC.
Right, yeah, 2 games up in the division, like you said. I thought it was just telling quickly that in the fourth quarter they called 7 design runs for Hurts at nut cutting time. That's
gross.
The most design runs called for a quarterback, like in any quarter, I think in the Next Gen Stats era. That there was like, we absolutely need points. Let's stop messing around. Let's have Jalen Hurts run, and that was the difference.
He ran well.
All right, let's take a break, and we will continue our roll through Sunday. Little funky little Sunday.
It's on New York City. It's on New York City.
2 New York teams to get to right now. Let's swallow some sadness, everybody.
The snap, waist on, pressure-free punt, and it's a good one, forcing Jones to backpedal, right side at the 16. Stabbed left, ran it right, down the sideline, to the 40, to the 50, to the left, left to the 45, beats the punter to the 35-30. Marcus Jones down the middle of the 10, into the end zone.
Block in the back.
No flag. Touchdown, Patriots.
Get your buses started. Get on the plane. See you back in New York.
He'll see who back in New York?
Yeah, that part did not make sense to me.
Idiot.
You're essentially would probably be flying back to
He's got some
to
business
Foxborough
there this
area.
week, actually, with Gatorade or Powerade. What is
No,
it?
he wishes he was
Too much
Gatorade.
information.
He's a sentient Powerade bottle. Bob Sochi with the call, WBZ. Yes, in the defensive stalemate of the season, it was a rookie for the Patriots who played hero. Marcus Jones returned a punt 84 yards for a touchdown with 5 seconds to go. I will look the other way on that block in the back of the 10-yard line because that doesn't matter. Because they didn't call it, and it is what it is. Jets lose 10-3. Patriots win in a really, really tough game if you're someone who, let's say you're trying to introduce your kid to, football, for instance.
No.
This is not the game to watch. Now, ending aside, enjoyed it on a perverse level, not because my quarterback's a mess and the offense stinks for the Jets, but there was like something noble about both defenses, the way they just kept on answering the bell over and over again. I mean, the Patriots were completely dominant in this game making Zach Wilson look as lost as he's ever looked, even though you didn't see the turnovers in this game. He played scared and jittery, especially as the game went along, and missed a lot of throws. But the Jets defense was really, really downright heroic within the terms of football, because every time they got a stop, and the Patriots did cross over midfield multiple times, they would make big plays to back them up, force punts or a missed field goal or two from Nick Folk. But the Patriots on the other side were, they come back with their own roundhouse rights and uppercuts on defense and send the ball right back. So it went back and forth all game, no turnovers either. So very interesting in that way too, until the punt, which, everyone's playing for overtime at that point. One missed tackle, and Marcus Jones, give him credit, he made a big play.
It was such an unusual game to what you've described that it was the first game in at least the last 40 seasons in which the first touchdown scored was a defensive or special teams touchdown in the final minute of the game. That is, we've just never seen anything like it. And there is a lot from your Jets angle, or if you're a Patriots fan, obviously, a lot to take away from what this team can do on defense. They're really well coached, and that's been a week-to-week consistent thing. It's not an aberration, but neither is it an aberration that you are forced playing around a quarterback that I don't think is an NFL quarterback. To me,
that's strong. He's in the NFL, but he's having a very bad year.
I just say it's a big challenge, and it's catching up.
Absolutely.
It's catching up with the Jets.
The weight room looks beefy.
All you want is just basic. If you just got basic, average, lower third of the league quarterback play,
we're gonna get to
you're getting out of this.
All right, we'll get to the Jets and Zach Wilson. I want to talk about the Patriots first, though, because they did move the ball. This isn't a situation of neither team could do anything. Mac Jones was actually 23 of 27 in this game for 246 yards. I think, Gregg, the biggest thing with Jones for me, and I thought he was much better this week in a lot of ways than he's been recently. I'm not coming out of this game feeling good about Mac Jones, but I think his lack of mobility really stands out. Now, the Jets are an excellent pass rushing team, but he's one of those guys in a league where you see more and more quarterbacks that are able to get away and make plays. He can't get away, and that stalls many drives for them.
Right. There was a couple key sequences early when Mac Jones took a sack, for instance, to back them up, and Nick Folk ended up hitting it off the crossbar. Like, that was a play that I've seen a lot out of Mac Jones this year, where it felt like the first reads weren't there, and he just sort of then waited for the sack. And that you didn't see a lot of that last year. But he was defensive. Both quarterbacks were a little defensive after the game, but Mac Jones was a little defensive, saying what you said, which is like, hey, we moved the ball. We got to capitalize on our opportunities better, but we moved the ball. There were things to build off of here.
Yeah, and, on the Jet side, I mean it. Like, with the Jet game against the Patriots 3 weeks ago felt like such an important game for Zach Wilson. So when he bombed that game out, for me, it lowered my expectations of him a little bit. And then this game comes off the top turnbuckle, and it's like, personally, I don't think he's the guy. I know there's a lot of Jets fans that are saying still, we got to give this a little more time. But this is a type of game that I will remember, that Jets fans will remember, as a guy that looked skittish and scared and couldn't shoot straight. And then after the game, to compound matters, he's asked by the media his thoughts on a game where he couldn't get a complete pass in a big spot to save his life when the defense playing out of its mind, and this is what he had to say.
As an offense, though, when you guys are only able to score 3 points, the defense only lets up 3 points. Do you feel like you let the defense down at all?
No.
Thank you.
It's the wrong answer because it's an easy one. That's a layup. That's media 101. As the quarterback, you represent the offense. You say, yes, we did. The defense played great. The special teams outside of that play, they really played well. We need to be better. So then you leave it to your rookie wide receiver, Garrett Wilson, to speak the way that the quarterback should be speaking, which leads to a disconnect and questions about the locker room. Here's Garrett Wilson.
It's not okay. Straight up, he's not okay. We had how many total yards we had?
A little over 100.
Yeah, that's not gonna fly. So, we got the dudes. It's time. It's time to be consistent. It's time to start winning the games we should win. It's time to do all that.
They had more punts than Zach Wilson had completions, and more punts than they had second half yards. 10 punts.
And the
They had 2 yards in the second half.
And beyond, 2 yards and 7 possessions. Behind all the gnarly stats, beyond that, beyond the words you heard there, you see it on the field too. Some of the body language of the Jets receivers when Wilson was just sailing throws high and skipping passes. This is a thing, and Bob Saleh, he's done a lot of great things. Just like Joe Douglas has done a lot of great things to make this team worth a damn this year. But the protection of Zach Wilson can be frustrating when after the game, Robert Saleh says, it was the furthest thing from my mind is taking Zach Wilson out of the game or benching him. And I get it. I understand as Jets fans, we need to maybe swallow some sadness and go through this season because you invested a number 2 overall pick. You got to give it 2 years. I'm willing to live with that. But if this is what the experience is going to be, unless we see something big in terms of gains in the last 8 weeks, the Jets need to aggressively address quarterback.
I disagree with that approach by Saleh because I think there's a way to try to do both. And Garrett Wilson, he was seeing Stormy into the locker room saying, I'm done with this, when he's like walking into the locker room before he talked to reporters. And at one point in that interview, he said, hopefully this is a wake-up for some people in the facility. And you don't know, but
it's a rookie.
Just hopefully, I think he might mean the quarterback decision, because when you're going through all of that, Dan, you had to be thinking, give Mike White a shot here to try to win this game. And yeah, it invites all sorts of questions. And do you go back to Zach Wilson next week? I would say yes, you would in that scenario. But try to win this game. It's still 3-3, and you owe it to the people in that group, because by the end the Patriots are just teeing off 3 and out. The Jets defense is playing their hearts out, and it doesn't make a difference.
Believe me, it crossed my mind, and I understand why they're going the route they're going, but it clashes with what you're seeing with the rest of the team, especially that defense. That is a Super Bowl level defense that you're potentially wasting the season on with Zach Wilson.
I don't see I don't agree or understand why they're doing what they're doing. If the record were flipped, if they had 2 wins right here, then I'd say you stick with Zach Wilson and you give it at least just use this season to go into the offseason with clear heads about what to do at the quarterback position. What if you got a lift from Mike White? Why is Joe Flacco not even given a shot?
It doesn't end his career if you bench him. That's
it doesn't. And also,
if he's going to ever be the guy, you getting benched at this point in this season doesn't mean it wouldn't end it.
It's not just that it's a chasm between the offense and defense. It is a drumbeat of your own wide receivers and skill position players saying stuff the best way they can say it without saying his name.
I don't disagree. I really don't. What I'm saying is I see where they're coming from, because I think also the way, especially the energy in this room, the frustration I have as a fan, we don't think the quarterback can play. I think they do. I think in that building, the coaches, I'm just saying the way they talk, I think they see a path to him getting better. But the coach, the players obviously are pushing back on that. So I think when Garrett Wilson he's talking about Zach Wilson, sure, but he's also talking about Mike LaFleur. I think the offense coordinator. I think he's talking about Robert Saleh, the coach.
The whole thing.
I think it's just a lot of frustration because everyone knows how good that defense is. And what happened today is embarrassing. And they
got swept.
They got swept by a team that I'm not going to say the Jets are better than the Patriots after they got swept, but there's no reason the Jets should not have at least split that series. And the reason they didn't is the quarterback. So you could spin it however you want, but that's the truth, and those are the facts.
It's true. It's the quarterback, and it's another one of these. This Patriots team is bizarre. This was the first win that they had without scoring an offensive touchdown since the Teddy Bruschi snow touchdown game, which fans of the Patriots from 2003 will remember. It was a similar type of game where he intercepts it at the end and then ends it. They're starting to stack up these bizarre defensive performances. They were number 1 in the league in EPA per play. They've turned into a good defense. I don't know if they're a great defense, but they know how to beat up on the bad guys. And this Marcus Jones,
especially at home, especially against quarterbacks in over their head. They eat them for lunch.
They kill them. And this Marcus Jones pick was a fun pick that they made in the 3rd round. I think they took him essentially as a return specialist, which very few teams would do. 174-pound, 5'8" cornerback to basically be their returner, because he loves special teams that much. And he showed up a little bit at cornerback, but he's basically a returner, and he's been great this year. I think he's a future Pro Bowl type returner, and it really paid off today.
Let's move on, but let's stick a pin in it, because I do want to talk about Greggy, and we'll do it because this week's a little different because of Thanksgiving. And the Pats do play on Thursday. I want to talk about Matt Patricia and this offense because the Foxborough fans were booing again, and it wasn't Mac Jones. It was some of the play calling, which I thought was terrible by the Patriots in this game. But we got to move. We'll get to that this week. Let's check in with the other New York team that was flying high. Problem is, they welcomed in the team around the NFL to the Meadowlands.
Uh-oh.
Goff leans in from the 4-yard line. Goff gives to Swift up the middle, end zone, touchdown, Detroit Lions. Those guys up front have done the job all day long, and they opened that thing up wide, and DeAndre Swift ran it right up the gut for the touchdown, and the Lions have extended this lead.
Get on your airplane. I'll meet you there. That doesn't even make sense. That this does. 3 games in a row.
Be the team.
Come on, Marc. Come on, Marc.
I knew this was happening
Join us, baby.
all day long.
I was doing it during the
You were
game.
singing it in the office.
ATL. The Colts went down. The Browns lost. Come on.
I'm happy for them.
He felt like when I was singing this during the game, it was almost like a shot at him.
Why?
No, it's a great song. It's our
It was
team.
not.
Dan Miller with the call.
Team.
D. Swift, touchdown. Put the Giants away. Jamal Williams ran for a career-high 3 touchdowns. The Lions beat up on the G-Men, 31-18.
How did we open this New York dual New York segment with a sad song about New York? It was really only just pointing at one of the teams, right?
The yin and the yang.
Well, I would say
the
it
other
was
New
a
York
good day
team
for
were
the
dancing on their graves today, and everyone in the nation can be happy
Well,
because the Giants' fake record is being brought back
He's
to
a Giants fan. He was so
this is
upset
just
with
like
this result.
No, this is just like it's just like the Giants were so happy that the
We
Giants had been.
chose the Lions as the team of ATL.
I'm not really even referring to the two of you, but I think there's a national call for the Giants to be put in their place.
Let me just make something clear from a production standpoint. The sad New York song was for both New York teams. In fact,
we sound real sad right now.
I moved them together. Listen, we're talking about the team of ATN here. I moved these games together because both New York teams went down.
I mean, I get the concept.
Now, you need to understand that we love the Lions in this studio.
Yeah.
At least the majority does. And it is very nice to see them, as bad as this season started, 1-6, questions about whether Dan Campbell, for all the bravado and grit and how much we like the guy and the program, to now having results, which they desperately needed, and back-to-back road wins after never producing one in the first whatever game, 18 games of the tenure. This was a huge win. This is a huge win for the Lions.
I just love the way they did it, and you're right. I was singing in the newsroom. I was saying this is a very special honor because it is a special honor when you're out. What? It's a great song.
Dan Tillman is. I mean, you've got to come be a part of it, Dan. Like it was.
I
just
thought you
long
liked
Sunday.
it. I didn't know you were so mad that the Lions are winning.
I'm not so mad at all. I actually can be. I'm thrilled for the Lions. It's the anti-Giants thing that I'm personally piqued by.
Well, it was more about the Lions in this game.
That's
but
Gregg
I was
Rosenthal you're talking about.
I was happy
understand.
I got the pick right too. But it was so many days.
You know about 42 and 46, right?
I have heard of the
Whenever he has
legend
a
of
chance to
42 and
dance,
46.
This segment includes him getting to dance his Fugazi Patriots team beating the Jets and the Giants losing. This is a Greggy segment.
This is the segment of the year. I'm going to be dancing on top of the desk. Aaron Glenn, Dan Campbell. It was nice to see them. They outcoached Brian Dable. Not that Dable hasn't done a great job. He would be my coach of the year at this point. But they had a game plan defensively. I want to start there that I think worked to perfection. They loaded their front. They played 4 or 5 guys. They loaded that box. They just refused to let Saquon Barkley beat them. 15 carries for 22 yards, and they just went man coverage on the outside the whole game. And these wide receivers, other than Darius Slayton, just try to beat us. I know we're not good in the secondary, but we're going to load up front. We're going to blitz quite a bit, and we're going to see if you can beat us for a big play. And you couldn't do it. Alim McNeil, not a player that we've heard a lot from since he was drafted in the 2nd or 3rd round last year. He was like Aaron Donald in this game. He had 8 or 9 pressures. He was all over them. Aiden Hutchinson turned this game around with a leaping interception.
He's starting to make some plays now. He's starting to stack some, impact moments.
He had a sack. At that point in the game, I would say the Giants actually might have been outplaying the Lions. It shouldn't have been this big of a blowout. Rodrigo's making plays. They forced 3 turnovers. It was just really good energy. I've seen good energy from their defense since the bye, and I think it's been building.
And the Giants, you know what? On the Giants side, they're just like the Vikings. They're due for a stinker. This is a stinker. They're still in really good position, the Giants, at 7-3. But I think, like the Vikings, maybe more. I think more so than the Vikings. I would keep an eye on the Giants and see how they react to this game, because there's been a lot of positive buzz around them, vibes, confidence building. That's a bit of a humbling loss. They've lost 2 of 3. Now you go to Dallas on Thanksgiving, home against the Commanders, who are obviously a little friskier than we give them credit for, and then you get the Eagles, and then go to Washington, then the Vikings. So the story of the Giants has not been written yet, really.
No, and I don't disagree that, like, do they look like a 7-2 team that we would think a 7-2 team looks like? No, I get that. I just think, like, the story of the Giants is that Brian Daboll, a first-year head coach, in a year where a lot of first-year head coaches are floundering in epic fashion, has been the coaching advantage week after week. Now, I think Dan Campbell's a good coach, too, and his plan and the Lions' plan showed itself the last couple of weeks. Absolutely. So it's like, I think you can look at both teams. I am kind of coming in with an angle on the Giants thing, but like, I do look at the Lions and say it is so important that this happened, because had they dropped these last 3 games and looked completely incompetent on defense, you start to wonder if major changes could happen. Now it's making me think the flip side. Dan Campbell can point to this and say, I have a plan. It's coming together.
I love their coaching. And, I think they had a lot of bad luck early where they lost some games they shouldn't have. And then they won a couple games maybe they shouldn't have won in that Packers game. Certainly the Bears game they stole.
Even Steven.
This game, the way they had Jared Goff on the move, and sometimes it was boot action, but sometimes it was him reacting and running away from the blitz, not considered a strength of him. He played really well in this game. DeAndre Swift has turned into their 3rd running back. That touchdown he scored at the end was kind of like when they give Zeke Elliott the touchdown. It was actually Jackson was the backup to Williams in this game, and both of them ran really well. They had a lot of creative play calls, and I do worry about the Giants' injury situation. It's been a problem for them all year. They lost 2 more cornerbacks in this game. It was later in the game. They were already losing, but Adoree Jackson got hurt on a punt return. That did not look good. Another starting cornerback. 2 offensive linemen got hurt in this game, and a safety, and they have a short week. So that was 5 more players playing significant snaps, 4 starters. Like, it's just been piling up a little.
Well, you mentioned, like, the future schedule. You do start to worry that, like, the positivity around a surging early season could turn slightly dark in a hurry here.
I do wonder if this game is maybe a pivot point for their season. But, listen, just like we were just talking about the Vikings, go win on Thursday,
and
wipe this away.
Like, this season is literally the opposite of even vaguely predictable. So they probably will go beat the Cowboys.
They were due. They're +1 point differential. But yeah, if you lose that game on Thursday, we'll get into it. They'll be 3rd place. But I love the Lions. They made Thanksgiving better. Even just looking forward to them
for the first time ever. Thank you.
I haven't been this excited for a Lions Thanksgiving game since Third Eye Blind played halftime at the Pontiac Silverdome in '99.
They got all these teams that play each other.
Unbelievable.
Thanksgiving teams playing
People
each other
still
this
talk
week.
about it.
That's smart.
Third Eye Blind. I thought it was who was the other one that had the more famous Thanksgiving?
Creed.
Creed. Yeah.
Creed. Well, they played at the old Cowboys Stadium, right?
Okay.
Or Jarrah World.
I thought they also played in Detroit, I thought.
Creed
if they brought Creed back for a Thanksgiving performance, everyone would love it.
Creed had like dancers flying through on curtains with like painted metallic green faces, and Scott Stapp was singing very seriously while all of that stuff was going on behind them. Like, it was wonderful. It's America's holiday.
Finger looking good.
The team of 8
that will be fun.
TL.
Yeah.
3 in a row. Keep it going, boys. Let's take a break. Welcome back. Let's now head to the Superdome, to the NFC's most disappointing teams head-to-head. That's a sell.
Out of the shotgun, right in the middle of the field. David Johnson to Dalton's right. Saints under pressure. Dalton throws it to the middle of the field, looking for Olave, who makes the catch. And see you later. Bye. Chris Olave with the touchdown. That's how you go from 2nd and 23 to a touchdown.
What's so funny?
Skinny Dalton's face after that.
Always amazing. Mike Haas with the call. This is like the Joe Montana wins a Super Bowl song. Feels a little...
I think it's apt.
Over the top for this particular
Dennis
game.
Allen won a game.
Anyway, Andy Dalton threw 3 touchdown passes. Matt Stafford left the field in the middle of the game to be evaluated for a concussion. in the second half, and the Saints beat the Rams 27-20. The Rams now 3-7, the defending Super Bowl champion. You have to go back. We should take a look at this. Most disappointing defending champion seasons. This one is a rough one. Nick Shook, here we are, buddy. Welcome the pipe to the show. Unbelievable. His body is a temple, but the Superdome was Andy Dalton's temple on Sunday, and he praised.
Andy Dalton, he gathered those Saints up in the huddle. He looked down and he said, "Hey, isn't that John Candy behind the goalpost? Hey, let's go make something sweet."
I like your
touchdown
callback.
pass to Chris Olave.
He just had
Well
this
done.
look. If you watch it on YouTube or watch the highlight, he kind of looked to the crowd and just be like, "Can you believe that? Can you believe I just
did the
did that?"
MJ again in the
I think
finals?
it was more that was a duck and it worked out.
Just
but I
quickly
can't
forget
tell.
about the 5 interceptions I've thrown over the last 2 weeks, please, everyone. Football is completely different than basketball.
That's true. Go ahead, Chucky.
He did the WWE Randy Orton where he gets up on the turnbuckle and he just turns and looks like this, puts his arms up in the air like, "Did you not, are you not entertained?"
Are you not
That's what Andy Dalton
entertained?
was on Sunday. "Are you not entertained, Saints fan?" 21 of 25, 260 yards.
Wow.
3
Phil
touchdowns
Simsian.
to 3 different pass catchers. We had Juwan Johnson, who's on a roll, by the way, guys. 5 touchdowns in 5 straight games. Jarvis Landry got into the mix, and Chris Olave. Dalton has been under fire, kind of indirectly, more Dennis Allen under fire for continuing to roll with Dalton for the last month or so when Jameis Winston is not entirely healthy, but healthy enough to be number 2, healthy enough to play.
That's a whole
And
weird
yet Dennis
story
Allen
over there now with Winston. So this helps. This helps Dennis Allen too, right, Chucky? You don't have to worry about having that conversation for another week.
Absolutely. You need vindication. You just hope that the Rams come up on the schedule and all of a sudden your quarterback looks real good. This is his best game as a Saint. He powered this offense. They were able to get some running going with Taysom Hill and Alvin Kamara. It provided the balance the offense they've really needed. For the first time in what feels like a month plus, they had some life offensively. And this is a matchup of 2 teams that have both been struggling with the football, have both had issues at quarterback. Matthew Stafford getting knocked out last week. He wasn't able to play. He got knocked out of this game. They had to go to Bryce Perkins. And the Saints just ended up being the better of 2 bad teams. So it's not a game that you look back on and say, that was the moment our season turned around. I don't have much, belief in the Saints from here, but it was nice for them to get a win and for Andy Dalton to actually put together a nice game when he struggled so much. But for me, more importantly than anything, it was good to see Chris Olave play an important role in this offense and not just be an afterthought. Like, man, he's such a talented receiver. He's probably the best receiver in this class. He's my rookie of the year.
I don't care about the numbers. Yeah, he's been the best player. I think that's a rookie.
I totally agree. He was my number 1 receiver coming out of this class, and that's maybe some Ohio State bias, but I just thought he was the most pro-ready receiver in this group. And often they don't use him enough because they've struggled with the football when it comes to Andy Dalton. So to have a game like today was very encouraging. And then on the Rams side, big bummer, man. I mean, talk about disappointment. They're on track to be the first team since the 2003 Tampa Bay Buccaneers to finish with a losing record after winning the Super Bowl. And frankly, I don't see any reason why they're not going to end like this, guys.
I mean, they could be 5-12 feels like they're over under.
Well, here's the
right
question now, because we learned this morning through some reporting that Cooper Kupp, after having that ankle surgery, is out 6 to 8 weeks. Do the math. He's probably not coming back. And now Matt Stafford with the head injury recurrence here. I mean, what's to stop the Rams to rightfully play this very safe at this point in time?
I'm surprised.
Nothing
Stafford,
in my opinion.
Right, I'm surprised Stafford played in this game.
I think that's odd too.
It
was odd all last week how Sean McVay handled it from answering the question from Jordan Rodriguez about what was going on with him. He's back in. It's another player with concussions 2 times in 2 weeks.
Right, and they never actually confirmed that he had a concussion. And you said you thought his answers were weird. Like, he kind of talked about Stafford's family, and he didn't answer a question straight about whether he had it again. And
he's not even in the protocol as of right now.
Okay, so they tested him, and he's not necessarily
He's going to
in the
test
protocol.
tomorrow, Shook, right, on Monday. But, I mean, this is a Saints defense that didn't have Marcus Davenport, no Cam Jordan, no Marshawn Lattimore, no Pete Werner, and Sean McVay, for all the bells and whistles about his genius, has not coached this team out of it at all. Matthew Stafford or not, I don't think the offense seems to change one iota without him or Kupp in there, whether Stafford's in the lineup or not.
The only change from them today was Tutu Atwell actually did something. He caught a long touchdown pass. Otherwise, it was more of the same. I thought it was the one moment that was, I think, emblematic of their entire season in terms of what they have on offense when it comes to talent was Bryce Perkins dropping back on a 3rd and long. He had Ben Skoranek open and just overthrew him, and they ended up having to punt. It's like, that's the Rams in a nutshell. Just not good enough, not talented enough. This is who they are.
Their defense isn't even that banged up, and the defense keeps giving up these kind of games.
Yeah. Jalen Ramsey got cooked on that touchdown to Olave, by the way.
All right, let's now move. I was going to say to Orchard Park, but it wasn't in Orchard Park because, the snow and stuff. Let's head to Ford Field.
Allen puts McKenzie in motion over the right side. Now the snap. Josh wants to throw. Scans the end zone. Fires it in. Got a man wide open. It is caught. Touchdown, Buffalo. Touchdown, Bills. They take the lead with 14 seconds left in the first half. It is Stephon Diggs targeted and 1 catch, and it goes for a touchdown and a Buffalo lead.
Oh, yes. The Buffalo Bills got themselves back on track. Josh Allen throws that 5-yard touchdown pass to Steph Diggs late in the first half. And from there, the Bills cruised, never mind the score, they cruised to a 31-23 win over the Browns in a game, yes, that was moved from Buffalo to Detroit due to several feet of snow covering western New York. Shooky, I watched this game as well, so I want to tee up this way. The Browns came out playing really well in this game. They looked like the better team for the better part of the first half to me. So that's how monumental I thought that final drive of the first half was for Buffalo, not just in this game, but potentially in the season as they spin forward, because that kind of seemed to calm everything down, and the Bills got back to being the Bills from that point onward.
Yeah, they looked like a team that had to dig its way out of several feet of snow just to get to the team bus, to get to the airport, to get to a game that's a home game that's not actually a home game. And the Browns look like a team that didn't deal with that type of snowfall. Now, granted, in Cleveland, we've gotten a little bit of snow, but nothing like that. But the thing is just as you said, Dan, this was the moment, I think, that the Bills rediscovered who they were offensively. It wasn't perfect, and it did include an element that I think a lot of people have wanted from the Bills for a long time, which is a bit of a commitment to the run, because that's actually what helped them move the ball, especially in the second half, and really salt this game away. Handing it to Devin Singletary, handing it to James Cook, watching them run hard, pick up first downs through this porous Browns run defense. That was what was most important. It wasn't Josh Allen throwing the ball over the field. In fact, he couldn't even get to Stephon Diggs until that touchdown pass just before half. And again, though, it's a team that we're talented, we're playing poorly, but we still capitalize on these situations after having a really bad first quarter. I think they had 15 total yards in the first quarter and then blew the doors off the Browns in the remaining 3 quarters, which you like to see that because it's a group that, everybody's favorite. Everybody loves the Bills. They're flying high, and then they run into a little bit of trouble, and then all of a sudden you're like, are they good enough to get out of that trouble? Well, Today they were, and maybe this is the launching pad for them as they enter the stretch run of the season.
This isn't a ship to jump off, Buffalo. This team it's too good, and you're right. They did a much better job running the ball, and it was interesting, speaking to that, the vibes around the team and the frustrations of the recent weeks. Before that touchdown drive at the end of the second quarter, Stephon Diggs, there was a shot of him on the sideline, and Sean McDermott was kind of like talking, like, calm down a little bit. He was upset that he wasn't seeing the ball and the offense wasn't doing well. So this was a team you could feel some tension riding within them. So this was a really nice win to get back to 7-3.
They almost woke up out of a super hungover, it seems like, in this game, because at one point it was 124 yards for Cleveland to 10 for Buffalo midway through the second quarter. Josh Allen did not he looked like he was still deeply in the slump. It's important for them to have turned it around. I mean, I look at this box score. Nick Chubb, 14 carries for 19 yards. I'm trying to remember the last time that occurred with Nick Chubb.
That's
so
impressive.
They shut the run down,
too. The fact
too.
that the Bills could be such a run-dominant team. You mentioned Singletary and Cook both with 86 yards on 29 combined carries, and then to be able to shut down Nick Chubb, I mean, that shows a toughness. I like the way you set that up, Dan, because if you're going to be a Super Bowl team, you're going to have these ebbs and flows, and you're going to have different moments of the season, and this little Detroit 2-pack that they have with the Browns and now the Lions here coming up on Thanksgiving, it could be, something they look back on.
And this was real quick on the Browns. This was a big game for them, even though they were the heavy underdog, even after the venue change, to try to get, a win here that would have put them within striking distance with Deshaun Watson now 2 weeks away. They don't have that. So they're 3-7. David Njoku came back. He made an incredibly athletic play on a leapfrog play. His ankle looks good. And Amari Cooper has been awesome all year. He's exactly who the Cowboys need right now, by the way. So Deshaun Watson, when he does enter the fray, he's going to enter. He might be rusty, but he's going to have some guys
Wait,
to
is he
play
going to
with.
outplay Jacoby Brissett the way he played today? Come on.
Brissett was great. Shook. The last word.
I'm going to offer something here.
Yes, go ahead.
I'm going to offer something, guys. Deshaun Watson's going to give you a reason to watch the Browns, especially with Amari Cooper as they kind of develop their rapport. But I'm going to volunteer this now in case you guys haven't. I'm sticking a fork in the Browns because they're going to be entertaining enough to watch on a week-to-week basis, and they're going to keep committing the same mistakes that they've made. At this point in the season, I've seen too much to believe that they're suddenly going to transform. The fact that they're 3-7, they're out of the race. The only reason to watch them now is to see how Deshaun Watson fits in for the rest of the season.
All right, this is the respect I have for Nick Shook.
So much.
Let's
stick a fork in him.
I call to order an emergency session, fork session. With Deshaun Watson back in 2 weeks, the 3-7 Browns, are we comfortable forking them?
Absolutely.
100%.
I, too, shall agree on that. The order has been carried or something, and the Browns are forked. Nick Shook, you will never be forked on this show. You're vital, bro.
Not even Creed could save the Browns right now.
Yeah! All right, there he goes. Let's keep the train rolling. Let's head to Atlanta, where the Falcons were looking to get off the mat.
Midnight train to Georgia.
Great.
Cordero Patterson out of the end zone. He'll hit the 20-25. Here goes CP. 35-40. Patterson on his way. 30. He's got the 20. 10. 5. Touchdown Atlanta. Holy smokes.
There's the record.
For the 9th time in his career, Cordero Patterson has returned a kick for a touchdown, and 3 of them of the 9 have come against the Chicago Bears.
Oh, what a career, Cordero Patterson. Making records with another kickoff return for a touchdown. Unbelievable. That was a huge play for the Falcons and a 27-24 win over the Bears. Patterson's score was not the decider. Younghoe Koo's 53-yard field goal, 53. He's a great kicker. Gave Atlanta the lead with less than 2 minutes to play. And Gregg, the Falcons get the stop on D against Justin Fields, and another win for a team that's just kind of grinding its way through a season.
They're staying relevant. You know, this keeps them alive for another couple weeks. The Bucs are in first place.
Sounds familiar
at
last
5-5. Yeah, but they're better this year. We've sort of been debating. You know, at one point I said they were spicy. That was maybe too much. They're definitely frisky.
Frisky, yeah.
I mean, like, if we think about it in terms of, like, the Chick-fil-A menu, they famously don't have Chick-fil-A open on Sundays anywhere, including inside the stadium.
Because of God.
Maybe they're just like the Nuggets. They're the Chick-fil-A Nuggets. They're tasty. I mean, they're sticking around.
They're feisty. They're salty.
they're salty, and they've got Patterson. It's just time to give Patterson his flowers. He's a special teams player of his generation. Like, he's literally the best special teams player of his generation. Not just all those returns, but he's been a top tier gunner on punts and kickoffs throughout his career. That's why Bill Belichick loved him so much.
Jesus Christ!
And in a game that was somewhat predictable and a little depressing from the Bears side and didn't have as much offense overall as they thought, Patterson gave it some juice.
Remember when we're using that Vilma drop 7 years from now, that was in reference to Cordero Patterson running over someone at the goal line. It's his career mark has been amazing because he's always been this incredible special teams player, and then Arthur Smith, to his credit, found a way to make him a real offensive difference maker. He's just been a great weapon for them 2 years running.
I mean, he was a fetish of Bill Belichick for a while. I mean, it's like this is someone who can do so many different things. I think with
10
Atlanta,
for 52 on the ground today. Had a nice day.
The way he runs, I think his frame, he just is so much more powerful than I recall him earlier on in his career as a runner. And I think Arthur Smith deserves credit on a strange roster for what he's done with him and other players. And I look at this Bears team on the flip side. It's like they call shootout games when both teams score 24. I'm not sure I totally agree with that.
This
category.
wasn't a shootout. Because,
I know it is, but that's for the category. But they're 0-4 in these games.
Oh, okay.
They're 0-4 this season because you talk about a team where it's all these great defenses that have no offenses helping them out. There's 4 or 5 of those teams. This is the reverse.
Who judges this as a shootout? Is that an NFL score?
I agree that this one was not, but that is a category.
The NFL research
department? At least one team needs 30.
I would think it need to be 30-30.
That's what I would sign off on.
But one of the teams has to get over 300 yards.
24 plus.
See, when you watch this, it actually was more defense than you expected.
Glad we settled that.
Yeah.
I don't think we settled anything, but
the Falcons' defense played quite well. They kept Chicago under 300 yards. They forced 2 turnovers. Their defense had to bow up on short fields. We had the special teams touchdown here, and Justin Fields wasn't the full Justin Fields. If you look at the box score, it looks like it. 85 yards on the ground, 150 through the air, had an interception, had 2 touchdowns overall. But in the second half of this game, he wasn't the same guy. He had a hamstring injury that I think was bothering him. He had 14 carries in the first half. That was the most carries, I think, for a quarterback ever in the first half of a game. And only 5 of them were scrambles. Most of them were design runs, and it was like they pushed it too far. They finally get to a position where they're down 3 at the end of the game. It's money time. They called design runs on the first 2 plays, which was weird because he was kind of limping out there. He didn't have the explosion, and he re-injured his hamstring, and he hurt his left shoulder on one of those. He was hit, I think, with a late hit in the head on a slide on the second down play, and then he throws an interception, which was more about footwork and just a bad throw on the third play. So it was an ugly drive, and he came out of this game pretty banged up.
He didn't seem right to me. Like the hit to the head, he was slow to get up after that. And then you saw him, I mean, this never seems to work out well. You saw him clutching at what I thought was a collarbone at first, but it's the shoulder as he was coming off the game. And they asked him about that, and he said that he was in a lot of pain. So, I mean, first of all, the way his game is, if you're going to have a major shoulder or upper body injury, you're not going to be the same.
He kind of not begged out, but he stopped scrambling in the second half. He had chances to run, and you could tell he wasn't feeling great, so he decided to just stay and throw. And they had a long touchdown drive.
That's a good recovery, by the way, Greg.
What?
Especially us 3 in this studio should never be saying any player begged out of anything.
Oh, right. No, I don't mean begged out. He I think adjusted well. They actually had an 8-minute touchdown drive to tie the game, and he had some good throws in there. But he stopped running, and you could tell it was because of his health.
I mean, he said after the game, after the x-rays, I'm hurting a little bit. And you saw a shot in the bowels of the stadium of him on the cart holding the left shoulder.
Right.
So, yeah, we'll see. And he's against a very tough, as we know, Jets defense next week. So we'll see what's going on with the Bears. So that's their 4th straight loss. They're losing games. They're 3-8. But, there's still a lot of hope, and so much of that centers on Fields, but he has to be healthy.
One last point.
Yes.
Falcons did a great job protecting Mariota, who did not play well again in this game. I don't feel any differently.
I want to see Arthur Smith with a quarterback. That's
right.
what I want to see.
Arthur Smith is the one refusing to play Desmond Ridder.
131 yards through the air. Didn't have a good running day either. But they only had 1 quarterback hit in this game. No sack, so very close to a Golston. Do you know who had that quarterback hit for the Chicago Bears?
Oh, it's got to be Jack Sanborn.
It's Jackie Sanborn.
Oh, yeah.
Well,
and also a fumble recovery.
He had some
as
plays.
Many people told me in my mentions.
He had a big missed tackle, but he made a lot of plays.
Can't be perfect.
Well, God created us all to have flaws to show that we are human.
You learn humility through that missed tackle.
Exactly.
Maybe.
Who among us?
Save it for the Theology Podcast, Tugboat.
Got it. All right, let's move on. Let's head to Pittsburgh, where there was a lot on the line, at least in the newsroom.
Burrow in the shotgun now, 2-by-2 formation. Pirine in the backfield. Burrow back to throw. Flips it out to Pirine. Looking for his 3rd. Touchdown catch. Runs over the pylon. Touchdown. Bengals. Samaje Pirine with a 3-touchdown catch game.
I love it. I love parabolic mics, too. That's what I love. There's a difference, though. With Zolak, so that's Dave Lapham with Dan Hort. There's difference, exuberance, and then the Powerade bottle, who's just like taking shots at a fan base that's not even listening to the radio call.
Yeah, but I mean, he fits his own fan base perfectly well. They love it.
Joe Burrow threw 4 touchdown passes, 3 to backup running back Samaje Perine. One of my favorite names in the league, by the way. The Bengals rally past the Steelers 37-30. Bengals up to 6-4 with their win. Mark, you and Mr. Rosenthal locked this game.
That's right.
Here we go. Lock bros.
No,
it doesn't work, but it worked
easy,
today, Greg.
It
worked today.
With the lock bros on that side. But anyway, you guys sweated it out a little bit.
We did.
But Cincinnati took care of business in the end.
They took care of business, and I thought, it was an impressive win in the sense that, you don't have Jamar Chase. You lost Joe Mixon to a concussion early on in this game. Coming off a game where he had 5 touchdowns, and they finally got off the shelf running the ball well. Pirine steps in. T. Higgins had an insane game. I mean, it's just like he completely.
They got 2 number ones.
Completely stepped up to play that role. Tyler Boyd had a couple big catches in this. Our guy Trenton Irwin, who was just activated,
Crikey,
came in and had a couple big catches
like
as
the
well.
Crocodile Hunter
our
too.
Guy. It's a rare our guy. It's all 3 of our guys.
I think we all in unison.
Let's call to order. Our guy.
I don't even know who Trent Irwin is. But
we had to look it
along
up.
with it. Yeah.
Yeah. Go ahead.
He became our guy. I mean, it was also just the Bengals defense down the stretch. Is it the Bengals defense or the Steelers offense?
Call to order. Our guy committee. There's so many committees.
Their offense is getting consistent. And that's all we've asked for. This was a game where their defense, and I've got questions about their defense. Ton of injuries to give up this many yards and points to the Steelers is not good. But if their offense is consistent, I'm just saying, then we have something to believe in with the Bengals.
There were problems in the first half, but the Bengals gave up 16 yards to the Steelers in the third quarter and about 60 total in the second half, and completely shut down Pickett and Pickens.
I get it, but they gave up 30. This is the best day Kenny Pickett's had as a pro, so you can't give him too many flowers, right?
I don't know what this endless giving the flowers to everyone is. It's like every show with the giving the flowers out, but it's like they're in Pittsburgh. They don't do well against the Steelers in general, and like they hadn't won an AFC North game, and they surged down the stretch, and I thought that Burrow made a couple great throws throughout the game, and so it's a division game. You go handle it. If we're gonna give the
division road game,
if you're gonna give the Bengals like a complete pass to get crushed by the Browns, a terrible Browns team a couple weeks ago, well then I'm gonna give them a pass to like not look like
just
the all-star team of the year.
Just long term. That's all. Was talking defense.
I'm annoyed now.
Punted you guys locked this together. Why are you fighting?
This is why we are not Lock Bros.
Listen, this is interesting. I think the Steelers are at least TJ Watt made such a big difference. I mean, he had an incredible acrobatic interception in this game. And Joe Burrow's just pulling his hair out with this Steelers team because he's had, big counting stat production days, but a ton of turnovers in both these games. But in the end, yes, they get the job done. Jamar Chase is off crutches, we're hearing now. There was a report on Sunday morning, so maybe he's getting closer to the lineup. Hopefully that hip allows him to be the Jamar Chase we know. I'm looking forward to what the season holds for Cincinnati. I think they're going to be an exciting team that will play into January.
They're just often not pretty, and I think it's easy to remember how dominant they were for weeks in a row, and then their magic carpet ride to the Super Bowl. They're not that team right now.
You know what else isn't pretty?
Lots of things.
When you lock a game, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then on this podcast we cover that game, and you get the wrong lock.
Oh.
And you don't, and you control the soundboard.
Yeah.
And all you have to do is hit the Price is Right sand horn and say, "Hey, I locked up the Vikings to beat the Cowboys, and they lost by 37 points at home." That should be easy, and yet it didn't happen. But now, since we're talking locks, Mr. Gravedigger. What happened there, buddy? What happened at the top of the show today?
I locked up the Vikings, and they lost by 37 points at home to the Cowboys.
Can we have another committee meeting and
call to order?
All right. If you lose by more than 30, if your lock loses by more than 35 points, can we make it a rule? That's losing a lock and a half. You get a loss and a half.
No, I deny that motion, but I see what you're going for.
Okay, how about moving forward? We won't even put it on Graver, but moving forward, if your lock loses by 30-plus points, you should have an extra half on it.
Well, or how about just be vaguely accountable and interject in the show
Marc.
as the producer will.
I think that's the real. Let's not bury the lead here.
Around the issue.
I was going to hit the horn and jump on and take accountability for my terrible lock.
We were all going to do lots of things.
But then Dan was already transitioning to the Eagles.
I didn't want to Dan under the bus.
I didn't want to cut off your flow, Dan, and ruin the transition. And it was such good podcast hosting.
So now he's turning into Aaron Rodgers on the McAfee show. Oh yeah, the receivers weren't in the right place.
No, it was just
such to start cutting Dan's reps.
Such a good host.
To deal with.
Dan was hosting so well by transitioning so smoothly that if I cut that off,
he got me back. We're
that
fine
would be
now.
bad
You
producing.
think we're just simpleton? Oh well, Dan did accept that answer.
Do you think? By the way, do you think if?
How did he?
Do you think if I was doing that transition and it was 43 the other way, do you think he would have hit
He jumps in with an 8-minute soliloquy about how brainiac he is with the locks. I love Gravedigger. I've joined his team. I'm a Titans fan now. He and I
love this is one of my favorite things. When Marc goes off on Justin, and then he's like, his brain's like, must readjust. But I love Justin
I
so
adore
much.
you and
Everything's
think that you're
fine.
wonderful at your job.
Justin is one of the more likable people in the
Must
building. So I'm
recalibrate.
not going to pretend I don't like Justin. That's
Overcorrective steering.
It's like my actual driving.
All right, let's move on.
I love you also.
Let's head to Baltimore, where the Ravens had a layup against the Panthers, or was it?
Jackson will keep it on the read option. Jukes a man, stumbles to the one, dives in for the touchdown. Lamar Jackson extends the Ravens' lead with the first rushing touchdown and the first touchdown of the game.
I can tell you what, he had me fooled because I was looking at Drake, and Lamar went to the right side with the ball.
The Baltimore Ravens forced 3 Panthers turnovers in the final 8 minutes and 14 seconds of game time. And I don't know why that was so hard to say. Lamar Jackson took advantage of it with that game-icing 1-yard touchdown run. Final score 13-3. Let's bring back the Gravedigger, who had some eyes on this game for us. Justin, everyone kind of had this one circled at Baltimore as, I'll throw it out there. A 31-10 type win, maybe a 27-6 win. But this game was 3-3 in the second half.
Yeah, it was Baltimore was 12.5-point favorites, and this game was just kind of, another one of those defensive struggles. Punt, punt, punt. Like the first, this is a possession count. Punt, 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 interception, punt, and then the Ravens ended the first half with a field goal to take a 3-0 lead into halftime. But both teams were really committed to stopping the run, which seemed to hamstring both offenses pretty badly. And the Ravens end up getting it done because the last 4 possessions for the Panthers ended in turnovers, including one on downs, fumble, and 2 interceptions. And Baltimore capitalized on good field position. They got a field goal on one and they got a touchdown on the other. That's how they were able to win the game.
Here's my question, Justin. Because we just gave the Bengals a bit of a pass, as I think you should. It's just take care of business, especially on the road against a division rival. The fact that they weren't able to score points against Carolina doesn't have a bad defense, but are we worried about the Ravens' offense after this game?
I wouldn't be worried about it. The Ravens really just couldn't run the ball, and it seemed like that.
They need to run the ball.
They need to run the ball, even against teams that are built to stop them, and that's how good their running game needs to be, or else they're not going to be the Ravens.
Well, it was also weird because they didn't commit to running the ball. They opened the game with a 5-play drive, then ended in a punt, and all 5 plays were passes. And even the commentators, Marc Sanchez on this game, was wondering, this is a team that runs the ball. Why have they not even attempted to run the ball? And then Kenyon Drake takes a few handoffs and gets stuffed seemingly every time until late in the fourth quarter. And it's maybe this is why they aren't running the ball. But I agree. I mean, if the Ravens want to be the team that we think they are, they need to be able to run the ball. But on defense, they look super legit. Roquan Smith was making plays. They were using him as a blitzer. He looks like he's fitting into that defense right away. So from that standpoint, Baltimore seems like one of the AFC's best teams. But the offense, I think the offense will come. I don't know. It just seemed like they were having a little bit of an off game in this
I wonder
one.
if there was sort of a matchup offense, which to your point, they can't be. They have to be able to run the ball no matter what. But they dominated the Saints, baffled the Saints. But against that, the week before on that Thursday night game, they did come out throwing the ball to a strange degree against the Bucs. And it's to me that throws me a little bit. I mean, I think the takeaway is if you can do the Panthers, if anything, and I know they had Baker Mayfield in there. I wonder if that kind of messed up their flow a little bit. They were so dominant on the ground a couple weeks in a row, and you held them to 36 yards at 2.1 yards per carry. The Ravens' defense is heating up and can shut down almost anyone, it seems.
It's crazy that Baker Mayfield coming back into the lineup and playing this game in Baltimore is just not even a story nationally or even on this pod. We're just oh yeah, it's Baker. He came in. They scored 3 points.
They didn't choose for
a couple picks. That's what we expect. It's just crazy we got to this point with him.
Does he get another start? I don't know. I mean, he obviously didn't do anything. So the Panthers are just
PJ Walker's.
They're moribund.
The Ravens aren't that talented at the skill positions. I mean, they have Lamar Jackson, who makes you talented, and they have an offensive line that could be talented. Ronnie Stanley had an ankle injury that Lamar said it sounded like it maybe isn't that bad. We'll see. But their number 1 receiver and their number 1 running back were both on other rosters this regular season. Like Demarcus Robinson was on another team. So was Kenyon Drake. And those are their top guys. I know Andrews was back, and he's really the one. But, like, that's...
And Gus Edwards was out. He would have been the starting running back.
It's a lot to overcome.
Yeah, and I think there's the Odell Beckham Jr. There was a report that he's very close to picking a team. I know it's believed that the Cowboys are the heavy favorites. I wonder if the Ravens would get involved with that.
The Giants were named. I would imagine the Giants are fading in that picture.
Tweet about the Cowboys today, too. They went crazy today. Eye emoji.
I will say on the Ravens offense, I feel like today was just a lot of miscues that is not necessarily something you would expect from the Ravens. Like Isaiah Likely dropped a pass that hit him right in the hands he should have caught. They had a lot of penalties that like pushed them back, including some that weren't really penalties. Morgan Moses got called for a face mask at the right tackle position where he didn't really even touch anybody's face mask. 15-yard penalty. That drive is killed.
Shall we excuse them too, the way that we're giving everyone sort of a week off?
You get a win, you're fine.
Doesn't matter at all.
It was a nasty little Sunday.
Yeah.
This is another game.
Little rough one.
Nasty little game.
Take a little punch.
Swallow that sadness.
Swallow the sadness. Nasty little thang this Sunday. Let's take a break and finish out the early and afternoon games. All right, listen. We cover every game. This is the inside the NFL treatment, 1990 style. Everyone gets their flowers. Washington at Houston. Let's check it out.
Flowers has been suspended for 2
Snap
weeks.
to Mills. He's throwing again. This time, first line picked off by Fuller. 35-30 down the sideline. He goes. Pick six. He's in. Touchdown. Touchdown, Washington.
We were just talking about Fuller and how he has been playing dominant. What a way to start the game.
Indeed, Julie Donaldson with Bram Weinstein, WBIG. Kendall Fuller set the tone with that pick six. Taylor Heineke threw for $191, clean. Commanders roll 23-10 over the moribund Houston Texans. Marc Sessler, take us through it.
Imagine a first half where the better team has 246 yards and the lesser team offers 5 yards.
It's an outrageous half.
5?
5. The lowest, obviously, by any team all season. Now, if you want to go back...
Well, the Jets had 7 in the second half.
So that's great that there was competition. That's the kind of Sunday it was. The team that did essentially the same thing last year was the Texans against the Bills. So their low point is low, and the low point for Davis Mills is low. And he had that Kendall Fuller pick six. He had another bad interception on a deep pass. They couldn't get anything going. I mean, Washington was dominant on defense, especially. Montez Sweat, half of the Young and Sweaty duo. We'll get Young back soon enough.
We need it. We need Young and Sweaty together.
But Jonathan Allen operated the second part of that duo. They combined for 4 sacks. So they just made – the Texans have no way out in these situations when someone like Dameon Pierce isn't running the ball well, and he obviously wasn't. On offense, they did just enough. I really think that Scott Turner – and we talked about Curtis Samuel on the preview show a little bit – has used Curtis Samuel so creatively, and that was another case of that today. But in general, just the way that he sets up the run game, I think they've been tough to beat. And Taylor Heineke will give you enough throws a game that in a game like this thing was over 10 minutes in.
Yeah, it's kind of typical that Davis Mills has the pick six early, and then Heineke had it might have been his first throw. I don't remember. Threw it right in the gut of a Texans defender, and then they just drop it. And that's kind of partly the story of Heineke's season. But you said, clean game. That's nice. They run the ball. I like that they gave the ball to Antonio Gibson more because, to me, he's a little more dynamic right now than Brian Robinson as a runner, but they both ran the ball plenty.
33 carries combined.
And you just got to wonder, how are Texans-colored Air Jordans, going to play? Are they going to look great? Yeah, the Heineke Jordan budget is really popping up.
Can I just say, because I'm not a sneakerhead. I know a lot of men my age are now, but I have to say I've been unplugged on the Heineke story with the sneakers just because I was like Tommy Lee Jones in the tunnel. I don't care, but you know what? Please explain to me what this is, because I don't know, and maybe I'm not alone.
No, he wears sneakers of the team, like shaded in the colors of the teams that he slays.
He buys sneakers for the whole team, Jordans, or for his offense. I don't even know. The colors.
What's his salary?
The colors of the team that he beats. Maybe it's his offensive lineman. That would make more sense. Or offensive players.
Got to be special order. Those guys got big old feet. So he's dropping like
I don't think they charge by the yard or anything by the inch.
The whole team, Greg?
Let me look at
That's what you
spot.
Maybe, no, it's probably offense.
It's a lot.
That's all I know. It was
going to root for losses.
All I know is that Adam Schefter tweet, which was more notable to me for the fact that Adam Schefter tweeted it at all than the Jordan.
What's going on with Schefter? I saw him on TV with his shirt off recently. Is he going nuts?
We know what he was mimicking the Kirk Cousins thing. There's probably a bit the producer said, "Please do this."
I gotta get caught up. I gotta be.
This Commanders team 6-5. I know you're saying this is the stink bomb portion of the game of the show here, but they've won what 5 of 6. They're in the NFC mix. They could be tied for the last playoff spot.
Houston dragged them in.
Right, I'm just saying.
Drag you down.
I'm as surprised as anyone.
Yeah, Washington has
Except
really.
It's like the third year in a row where like Ron Rivera's won like 4 games in a row with a strange team.
I think we know the ceiling here, right? This is a 9 or 8 or 8-9 team. But you know what? Considering all the garbage that surrounds this coaching staff and these players,
I've got some
pretty good job at Washington.
News. It's disappointing developing news.
Oh no!
It has to do with Taylor Heineke.
Oh no!
He just buys the Jordans for himself.
That's what I thought the story was.
I just assumed. Well, here's why. On Tuesday, he indicated on the Pat McAfee show he might buy his lineman Jordans for the Eagles win. Previous to that, It was only Jordans for himself.
By the way, his base salary this season is $1.5 million.
But he gets a $125,000 bonus for every victory. That was part of it.
Yeah, but then you take taxes out of that,
It takes a bite.
Yeah.
You got to give a cut to your representation. That takes a bite.
He's doing
70 players if you count.
He's doing fine. And
shipping and handling.
He has guaranteed himself employment in the National Football League for about 6-7 more years.
If you take out all the different
run,
all the different, hands that are out, he makes $350 a week. That's a true story.
Yeah.
John Madden told me that in the John. Let's move to the last game of the week. Ooh, this was a humdinger, I'll tell you what. Zeuser pulled the straw on this one, and
this was a good
short
game.
it was.
It was a good game.
It was not a good game.
It was good.
To Denver.
1st and 10 on the Broncos 35. Carr, play action again. Looking downfield. Lofts it near corner. Adams wide open at the 5. He walks in, and the Raiders walk off with a win. Touchdown Davante Adams to win it here in Denver.
I like Jason Horowitz, KRLV. Wouldn't mind hearing Brent Musburger on that call.
I hear you.
Anybody else miss Brent? Nothing to do with Horowitz doing a great job.
It's not a reflection on his skills.
Maybe even just that call. Jackpot, baby.
I missed that.
If you call, I think he has a 1-800 line, Musburger.
Oh,
maybe he'll just
sure
do
he
the call. Maybe he'll do the call for you for a fee.
Musburger's living it up in Sin City. Derek Carr hits a wide open, and I mean wide open, Davante Adams. 35-yard touchdown pass. Third play of overtime.
Jackpot, baby!
Thank you. Raiders 22-16 over the Broncos in overtime. The Raiders never even led this game in regulation, but they get a field goal from Daniel Carlson with 16 seconds to play to push the game into overtime. And good for the Raiders because even though Rachel Bonetta was on our show on Friday and she threw out there the idea Derek Carr, is he, gunning for an Emmy with some of these press conferences, how upset he is. I disagree. I think this has been a very emotionally taxing season when you go by how hard things have come for this team. And to finally be on the right end of this type of game, I'm sure it feels very good for the Raiders as they get on their plane to head back to their city where the opposing play-by-play color guy would be in that city waiting for them. I don't know. You got to ask Zolak about that. But anyway, nice win.
That hurt my brain.
For the Raiders, and the Broncos just more of the same, Mark. Again, first drive of the game, or the first or second possession, Russell Wilson looks excellent. He leads
first half. He played pretty much
right
perfect.
Down the field. They score a touchdown. He's making good decisions. He's buying some time in the pocket. He's making throws. And I almost tweeted it, and I was like, shut up. So I didn't. But you never get sucked in with this Broncos offense because they will stall forever, even when you think they're turning a corner, and it doesn't matter if it's no longer Nathaniel Hackett calling the plays. It's now Clint Kubiak. Didn't change anything. Same Broncos.
That is pretty dark. If 4 months ago, 5 months ago, we would know that Nathaniel Hackett, who was hired for this skill particularly, his offensive mind, is in a week before Thanksgiving, days before Thanksgiving, turning over play calling duties. That would be telling. There's an incredible stat from this game. This season, when teams are leading by 3 or more points with 2 minutes or less remaining, they are 102-6.
Okay.
The Broncos are 2-2 in those games.
I feel like the Raiders gave up some of those losses too. They were down 10-0 in this game. You felt like the Raiders probably aren't coming back. Adams, that route in overtime was so good that
he's amazing.
The other defender wasn't on. It looked like it was a blown coverage, but it was no. He just like ran the route out of, got him out of his shoes. He's been incredible. Derek Carr had a big time drive to set up that game-winning field goal, but the final drive for the Broncos before that game-tying drive from the Raiders was so disappointing. They run 2 times. They're coming out of the 2-minute warning. The Raiders have no timeouts. We were having a discussion. I kind of said, don't let Russell. I'm usually the aggressive person, but if you could take 50 seconds off the clock and punt, you either run, which I would think would have been fine. You call a very safe pass, or you tell Russell Wilson you got to take a sack unless something's wide open. Russell Wilson is in shotgun. No play fake for the run whatsoever. He's looking down the field. It's a 3rd and 10. I mean, how often have they picked up 3rd and 10 this year?
Twice.
Nothing's open, and he throws an incompletion. After the game, they asked Hackett about it, and he said it carefully, but he said his wish would have been that the clock would have kept moving in that situation, which is his way of saying you have to take the sack there. If I'm going to trust you to do that, you either have to take the sack or you have to run. Look, you could have run for 5 yards and then punted. And that's just a total brain cramp by Russell Wilson that leads pretty directly to them losing this game.
That's weeks in a row where Nathaniel Hackett has suggested verbally that the quarterback is
killing him,
operating
like he's going to get him fired.
Right.
And he's being asked about it after the game. He says,
Nathaniel
I don't
Hackett
make those
isn't
decisions.
Like pure in all of this. But
and you know what? I liked the call. As bad as Russell Wilson has been, as bad as this season has been for Denver in that situation, that was Clint Kubiak saying, "Hey, Russ, win the game for us."
Then execute it. You got to execute.
You got to make a play.
Yeah.
Yep.
And
you got to just take the sack. Like if something's not open, you got to run for 5 yards.
And he should know better. He should know better. I mean, he's trying to make a throw. I don't think it was a throwaway, even though it looked like it. I think he was trying to complete the pass. It just didn't happen. And that has been his season in a nutshell. He doesn't make plays.
There was no one there, much like the last play in regulation, which they weren't going to score on anyways, but no one looked up for the pass. It's just a lot of that. For the Raiders defense of all defenses to hold you to 16 points is a new low. It's tough.
They're one of these teams where the season cannot end quickly enough for the Denver Broncos.
And I think Hackett is in very deep trouble.
Yeah.
Yeah.
New ownership.
Come on, y'all. Russell Wilson. Holy sh!
Remember, the
very
owners,
exciting.
The owners were not there.
That was such a great open press that press conference.
That's
with
an
Russell
example
Wilson.
of how quickly things change in our league, because Nathaniel Hackett thought he had, and he did have the opportunity of a lifetime. He takes this job in Denver. He ends up with this Russell Wilson borderline Hall of Fame level quarterback joining you on a big blockbuster trade. And now you cut to nearly December, and he's on the ropes.
3-7.
All right, that wraps up the video portion of the flagship program. Thank you to everybody for watching. We'll be back next Sunday with everything from week 12. Until then, enjoy Thanksgiving, enjoy your families, enjoy life.
Life.
Heed the call.